Ever wonder why a cup of coffee costs what it does? Or why a flight you looked at yesterday is suddenly double the price today? Well, it's not random. There's this powerful, almost invisible force at work, a kind of hidden logic that sets the price for just about everything. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this invisible hand.
So let's kick things off with a little puzzle. Imagine you see a concert ticket for your favorite band, and it's $50. Awesome deal, right? But then, a month later, for the very same artist, the price is skyrocketed to $500. How does that even happen? It's not magic, it's economics. And to really get it, we need to meet the two main characters in this whole story, the buyer and the seller.
All right, let's start from a perspective we all know inside and out, our own. As buyers, every decision we make creates this huge force in the market. This is the story of demand.
Now here's the thing. In economics, demand isn't just about wanting something. I might want a private jet, but that doesn't really count, does it? Real demand, what economists call effective demand, is when you've got the desire to buy something and, crucially, you also have the cash to back it up.
And that pretty simple idea leads us straight to one of the most fundamental rules in all of economics. It's called the law of demand.
It's actually super intuitive. It basically says there's this inverse relationship between price and how much of something we're willing to buy. Think about it. When the price of something is really high, we hesitate, right? We buy less. But when that price drops, we're way more likely to buy more. It just makes sense.
Let's put some numbers on this to see it in action. Take those concert tickets. At a steep $200, maybe only 1,000 diehard fans are willing to pay. But you drop that price all the way down to $50, and suddenly, boom, 7,000 people are ready to buy. That right there is the power of the buyer.
But, of course, buyers are only half of the equation. To solve our little price puzzle, we have to meet the other major player in this drama, the seller. And this brings us to the story of supply.
So, the seller's motivation? It's pretty much the polar opposite of ours. They want to make as much profit as possible. So for them, supply is all about how much of something they're willing to sell at a particular price.
And this leads us to the law of supply, which is basically the mirror image of demand. For a seller, a higher price is like a giant green light. It's an incentive to produce more and sell more. But a low price? Maybe not worth the trouble, so they offer less. It's a direct relationship. Price goes up, the amount they're willing to supply goes up right along with it.
Okay, back to our concert. The supply table tells the seller's side of the story. At a lowball price of just $50, the venue might only bother to make 2,000 seats available. But if they realize they can charge a premium, say $200 a ticket, you better believe they're opening up every single seat in the house, all 7,000 of them.
All right, so we've got our two stories. Buyers want low prices and sellers want high prices. So, where in the world do they meet?
So here we are at the fundamental conflict. Buyers want the lowest possible price, sellers want the highest. It feels like a standoff, like they could never agree. But this is exactly where the market starts to work its magic.
Let's just put both sides together on one table and see what happens. Look at that top row. At $150, sellers are excited to sell 5,000 tickets, but only 2,000 people actually want to buy. You've got way too many tickets. That's a surplus. Now look at the bottom row. At $50, you've got 7,000 people clamoring for tickets, but there are only 2,000 available. Not enough to go around. That's a shortage. But notice that row right in the middle.
That middle row, that's everything. It's what economists call equilibrium. At exactly $100, the 4,000 tickets people want to buy perfectly matches the 4,000 tickets sellers want to sell. No leftovers, no one left empty-handed. It's the market's sweet spot, like a perfect handshake where the deal gets done.
But here's the catch. That sweet spot isn't set in stone, not at all. The market is alive and it's always moving.
Let's jump back to our concert. Imagine, overnight, the artist wins a massive award. All of a sudden, everyone wants to see them. This changes what we call consumer taste. Now, way more people want tickets at every single price point. Demand has literally shifted. That old sweet spot of $100, it's not going to work anymore. You'd have a massive shortage. So, the invisible hand gets to work, and it pushes the price up until it finds a new, higher equilibrium.
And it's not just popularity that can cause these shifts. What if everyone in town got a raise? Well, that could increase demand for all sorts of things. Or for sellers, what if a new technology made it way cheaper to produce something? That could increase supply. The point is, the market is this constant dance between all these moving parts.
And this whole incredible self-correcting process, this constant adjustment to find a new sweet spot without anyone being in charge,
That is what the famous economist Adam Smith called the invisible hand. This constant give and take is the price mechanism in action. It's this amazing, decentralized system that organizes the entire market. Nobody is in charge. It's just the result of millions of people making their own choices, all of which push and pull the market toward that equilibrium point. So, this self-organizing system is remarkably efficient. But that brings up a really big question. What happens when an outside force, like a government for example, decides the market price isn't fair and tries to step in and set its own?
Well, there are two main ways this usually happens. You have what's called a price ceiling, which sets a legal maximum. If you set that cap below the market's natural sweet spot, you're going to get a shortage. More people will want the thing than suppliers are willing to sell at that artificially low price. On the flip side, you have a price floor, which sets a legal minimum. If you set that floor above the sweet spot, you get a surplus. Sellers will supply more than buyers are willing to pay for at that high price.
And look, these aren't just theories in a textbook. A really common example of a price ceiling is rent control. When rent is legally capped below what the market would naturally set, you often end up with things like long waiting lists and housing shortages. A classic example of a price floor is the minimum wage. When the wage is set higher than the market equilibrium, it can sometimes lead to a surplus of labor. In other words, more people looking for jobs than there are open positions at that wage.
And that brings us right back to the core idea. The price of your coffee, your concert ticket, even a share of stock, it's all the result of this beautiful, complicated, constant negotiation between what we all want and what others are willing to sell.
So the next time you see a price that makes you just scratch your head, you'll know what's really going on behind the scenes. You can see that push of demand and that pull of supply. You can see the invisible hand at work. So what price puzzle in your world are you going to solve first?